Nurses, how often do you see corruption within the medical industry? One of the doctors at my hospital had worked as a surgeon for over 30 years, and he disregarded every single improvement medicine had made in that time. He still believed in things like skipping gloves for preparation because clean hands are enough, and refusing to double-check medication dosages because he knew what worked. But that wasn't even the worst. The worst was that he acted like he owned the place. Nurses would step out of his way in the halls. If he walked into a room, everyone went quiet. He had a habit of pointing out the smallest slip-ups, making you feel like you'd failed at your whole job, even when it was just a missed comma in a chart. One night, I saw him prepping for surgery. It was late, and most people had gone home. He walked in, skipped the hand scrub, barely rinsed, and just pulled on his coat. He didn't bother checking the instrument tray or confirming the count with the tech. He went right in like he was making a sandwich, not performing surgery on a living person. My stomach actually twisted. I just kept thinking, what if that was my kid on the table? I didn't sleep that night. I spent hours scrolling through my son's school calendar, then froze when I saw his name listed for a minor surgery coming up. Guess who was on the schedule? I felt sick. I knew I had to do something. I started keeping a notebook. Every skipped protocol, every careless step, every time someone flinched when he walked by. I wrote it all down. I was careful, and I waited until late one night to slip an envelope under the admin's door. I hoped someone would take it seriously. Nothing changed. I started getting weird notices about being late, which never happened before. People started avoiding me. I saw him chatting with one of the admins, and I swear he smiled right at me while shaking hands. It felt like the universe telling me to keep my mouth shut, but at this point, I was in too deep, so I started looking for anyone who'd back me up. There was one nurse who had been there longer than me. I watched her comfort another nurse after he tore her apart for no good reason, so I figured she was the one. I gave her a little nod in the hallway one day, and she gave me the same look right back. We started quietly collecting notes from other nurses. Nobody wanted to say anything out loud, but you could see it in how their hands shook when they handed over their stories. He must have picked up on it because he started showing up everywhere I went. He'd stand behind me at the medication carts. He'd walk by the staff room and stare until I left. One morning, I came in and saw that my friend's locker was stripped clean. She was gone. She didn't even look up at me when I spotted her heading out, just kept her head down and left. I got the message loud and clear. I spent that night sitting in my son's room, watching him sleep, trying to decide if it was worth risking my job. I felt scared out of my mind, but something about the way he clung to my hand in his sleep just made me feel stubborn. I wasn't backing down, not after everything. I pulled every scrap of evidence together, even the notes about the times he tried to scare me off, or when my stuff got lost from my locker. I went to the ethics board first thing in the morning. I could barely hold the folder. My hands were shaking so bad. I sat there while they flipped through everything. I actually saw a few of them exchange glances, and I felt the tiniest bit of hope. It didn't last. A few days later, I found my locker broken into and my notes scattered. Then I got called into HR and handed a letter listing mistakes I didn't even make. It felt like my whole world was about to cave in. I cried that night, but then I just got angry. I went over every single detail, made new copies of everything, and got ready for whatever was coming. The hearing room was packed. People tried not to look at me, but I could feel them watching. He sat across from me, arms folded, looking bored. When I started laying out the evidence, I watched him go from smug to actually gripping the edge of the table. The more I explained, the more people in the room started leaning forward. The board members looked at each other, and I realized for the first time that maybe I wasn't crazy. When they turned their attention to him, I saw the confidence drain right out of his face. As I left the room, people gave me these tiny nods of respect. It was the first time I felt like I could actually breathe again. I just walked outside, looked up at the sky, and finally let myself relax, knowing he wasn't untouchable after all.